Good morning. It's 11:30 a.m. on Thursday, January 9th, 2025. This is the regular meeting of the Sandpoint Pedestrian and Bicycle Advisory Committee, which is now called to order in council chambers at City Hall, 1123 West Lake Street, Sandpoint, Idaho. For the record, I am Committee Vice Chair Molly O'Reilly presiding. Also present are committee members. And Heather, will you please read these?
Yes, I'm gonna go ahead and just do a roll call type status so we can just make sure everybody's here. So obviously we have Molly present, Aaron Billings. Here. Thank you. I have Evan Lewis.
Here.
Thank you. Jennifer will be joining us later, hopefully is the plan, but at this time she has not arrived yet. So at this point she's absent, hopefully to join us soon. Julie.
Yes.
Thank you. Bradley. Thank you. Reed.
Yes.
And then I also have Taylor, who is not present at the moment, or yes, she's absent. And then we also have Deb present and staff liaison Brandon, as well as myself, Heather Faircloth.
Great, thank you so much. At this time, I entertain a motion to approve the minutes from our December 12th meeting. Is there a motion?
If they so moved, someone's gotta do that first.
So moved.
Now I can take it.
Yeah, I couldn't hear who moved and seconded.
So moved by Evan.
Thank you.
By Reed.
Okay, thanks. All in favor? Anyone opposed? Abstaining? Great. Motion passes and the minutes are approved as presented. For our first item of business, we will select the members of our multimodal transportation master plan subcommittee. And we have motions for each committee, but they really all kind of go together. And I'm going to share my screen if I can make this work, because I started to put that together. All right, so we have a maximum of 4 per committee, and we have 4 committees. For the multimodal transportation master plan, we have 4 people who put it high on their lists. Deb is non-voting, so I didn't count her. Reed, Bradley, I asked for that committee, and Evan. Are there any questions or anybody else who really wishes they could be on that committee? Because I would defer to somebody who did. I'm listed for 3.
This is Deb. How many, total, committee members do we have?
We can have 4 of our committee members,
Okay.
and
Okay.
you're a non-voting member, so I didn't count you.
Okay. Have to have 4 though?
I don't think
No.
so. I think a subcommittee can be.
Okay. Let's actually go through all of them, even though that's not how the script is written, and then we'll do a motion for each one once we feel like we've gotten them all organized. For assignments, we have Kate, Molly, and Julie, who actually requested them. Jen has said she wants to be wherever she's needed. Julie had no second preference. Radley said anything with that where it was needed. And so I think we've heard from everybody now, and we can add someone to the intersections. Does anyone who's not showing here want to be on intersections? Okay. I'll just put Jim there for now. Events. Aaron, Kate, and Reed are on events. Is there anybody who would like to be part of that committee? Okay. Reviewing developments. Aaron, Molly, and Evan. Anybody want to be on that committee? Okay, I'm going to add Jim there. How do these look to everybody? We can add people or shift them around, with a vote later.
I would say it's a good start to get
Okay.
them going.
All righty. All right. So for our first item of business, we will select the members of our multimodal transportation master plan subcommittee. And now you're seeing my script. Sorry about that. And that would be Deb as a non-voting member, Reed, Radley, Molly, and Evan. I would entertain a motion to approve that membership.
Second.
All right. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Great. All right. So now I have to, I'll unshare if I can. How do I unshare? Let's see if that works. Okay. The next are the members of our event planning subcommittee. And those would be Aaron, Kate, and Reed. I would entertain a motion to approve that subcommittee and its members. Okay, thank you. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Great. Subcommittee members have been established. We will now select the members of our development review subcommittee. And those are Aaron, Molly, Evan, and Jen. Does anybody have any modifications? I would entertain a motion to approve that committee, that subcommittee.
So move.
Second.
Second. All in favor? Aye. Anyone opposed? Okay. We have approved the membership for our events subcommittee. We'll now move on to our intersections subcommittee. Proposed members are Kate, Molly, Julie, and Jen. Are there any modifications? I would I would entertain a motion to approve that subcommittee's membership.
So moved. Second.
Great. All in favor? Aye. Anyone opposed? Subcommittee members have been established. And it will be up to each subcommittee to exchange emails or calls or whatever they want to do and set a chair and figure out when they're going to meet. And I would encourage that to happen before our next meeting. Okay, next we select our next item of unfinished business is our continued discussion on recommendations for the city's open house notification policies.
Deb again. So, this was kind of something I said I would talk to the mayor about, and him and I did sit down and have a discussion. And then he kind of emailed me sort of the different pieces, and I'm just gonna read you, it sort of summarizes those things. Dear Council President Rule, thank you for taking the time today to discuss the issue of public engagement and outreach to the city. During our discussion, you expressed a desire for clarity on any official public engagement policy currently adopted by the city and suggested ways that we can strengthen our public engagement for capital projects and related city initiatives and actions. Having followed up with staff today, we apparently do not have a consistent written policy for public engagement and outreach. For land use files, we follow the noticing provision of Idaho Code and Sandpoint Code, with the exception of certain grant and loan funding requests for projects such as those to Idaho Commerce or other state and federal agencies. I'm not aware of other public hearing requirements. Through the reestablishment of our citizen committees and commissions, I hoped we would provide an organic channel for those committee members to disseminate the activities and projects being undertaken by the city to friends, neighbors, and others. What I'm hearing is that the process is lacking in that some committee members are not aware or of active or future projects, and that there is a desire for improved awareness of upcoming projects, as well as improved opportunities for notification and comment. To address these areas, I've asked staff to develop a model public engagement, a model, sorry. I'm stuck on multimodal. Public engagement and notification procedure to be publicized and followed. I anticipate that the document will be presented to the council within 1 month and will cover at a minimum the public engagement process for 1, capital projects, 2, private land use applications, 3, master plan amendments, and 4, code revisions. Additionally, I will visit with staff who support the committees and ask them to brief the citizen groups on ongoing and upcoming city projects. I'm hopeful that with the consistent numerous department head updates provided at city council, the public will have a long lead time and awareness of projects that are in the works or being worked on. Ideally, the council and the public will have weeks of pre-notification prior to action items coming before the council. This, in addition to a consistent outreach and engagement policy, will further the transparency of our work and will improve feedback. With the adoption of a formal public engagement policy, we will have a consistent and dependable process for future activity that will serve all well. I thank you for bringing this to my attention. Sincerely, Jeremy. So with that said, if there are suggestions or ways to address, I think it would be a good time for this committee to make those suggestions, and then I can make sure that they get back to the mayor or appropriate staff. And since we have staff here, maybe I don't have to do that. And if there are notes, then that can happen. The things that I wrote down from our last meeting would have been Sandpoint Online, KRFY, Reader, and the Beam. And we didn't really define if those are repetitive notifications or single notifications. And so I'm ready for any kind of suggestions to move this forward with the mayor and staff.
I just want to add, it's, so while you're thinking about your recommendations, it's not just, where to publicly notify people, it's also what point in the process you want staff to bring public notice.
Frequency also.
Frequency. So you got to think about, these projects typically involve, taking a concept from the master plan and deciding to apply for grant funding. Right, so they go to city council and ask if they can apply for a grant. Then they ask city council's approval to apply for the grant. To actually accept the grant. And then they they have to ask approval to hire a design team to design the project. Then they have to go to council to go to bid, so there's several steps in the process, just be aware of that.
From your experience, do you have any immediate thoughts on kind of being closer to the process than we are on what might be a good starting point? I mean, from my experience broadly with projects, it seems like with outside input, having some sort of preview early on to help mold directionally, and then some sort of check-in potentially later tends to work well, but
Yeah. I think it's a good idea as soon as there is a draft concept of the plans to have an open house early on. I like that idea. That's kind of what we've done with the Cedar Street project.
Mhm.
We took the 30% plans, printed them out on a big piece of paper, and then invited the neighbors and the rest of the community to come look at it.
Mhm.
That allows us to, if there's any big red flags that we maybe somebody from the community pointed out that we didn't notice at first, it allows us to pivot without having to pay our consultant to redesign it.
Right.
So that's good.
I guess a request for people, depending on, times of day when these types of meetings can happen, a lot of people can't adjust or modify their schedules unless they have almost 30 days heads up, especially for anybody who works in medicine. You can't just not see your patients, or change your schedule at last minute. So that would be something that I think, and I don't think it's just medical. I think there are a lot of people that have to plan that far ahead if they do really want to show up for something. So, and I know there are going to be instances where it's not always possible to be able to advertise in 30 days ahead of time, but maybe we can kind of play around with, when possible to do something like that. And then that would fall kind of into the frequency piece, but.
I would like to add the City of Sandpoint's Facebook page, because that's where I can share it to our Safe Routes Facebook page to try to get more engagement.
And doesn't the city have an alert? Like,
I think if you sign up,
you have to sign up for that alert? You have to sign up for email notifications, and yeah, there is that, but there's not a secret fix. Okay. That application went away, but there still is a way to, have emails sent, but you have to go into the system. to do that. But you can call City Hall, and be directed, and ask how that's done if you want to get those sent, so.
Molly, were you ever able to figure that out? I'm just remembering that you sent me an email saying that you were unable to sign up for those alerts.
I'm almost unable to hear anybody. I have everything turned up here as high as I can, but I've texted a couple of people. I don't
I can get a deputy in here to assist with the audio. Can you hear me okay?
I can hear you right.
I'm wondering if it's that end of the table.
Sorry, Molly, can you hear me now?
Yes, thank you.
Okay. I just was gonna add, I know that you emailed me after the last meeting and said that you were having trouble signing up for those notifications on the city website. Did you ever figure that out, or you still haven't, you never figured that out? Okay.
No, and somebody was supposed to contact me and didn't.
Thank you, Brandon.
You know, speak loud for a moment.
Right, talk loud.
so I didn't hear open houses is in his email. Is that gonna be included, I assume?
And I can't hear Aaron.
Okay,
This was notification, but, For anything? For anything, for all things, for the open house, it's just the whole process of how do we notify.
Okay.
Yeah, we're gonna do, that policy is gonna be, it's gonna include not just capital city projects, but it'll include. I think that what the direction was to include some guidelines for. Private development maybe too.
What he said, just, sorry. to
Go ahead,
interrupt you.
go ahead.
He said capital projects, private land use applications,
Yes.
master plan amendments, and code revisions. That doesn't mean that if there's something we feel like we need, I think the other part of the policy that I'll bring up with him is that we also have direct notification to committee members. Because that would help committee members then do what he said about, contacting your friends and neighbors and others. You know how to direct them better if you're at the front of that engine and you get those public notices before they even go to the public. That email is a blast to committees, whether it's this one or Parks and Rec or whatever committee. And it's kind of like, oh, the next day it comes out in the paper or whatever, but you knew about it the day before because it was in your email. So, that would be, another thing, so.
So if you go to the City of Sandpoint homepage. And then it says, like, there's a little, the 3 hamburger thing way on the left side. If you click that, it says get involved. And then it says subscribe. I believe that's how you can enter your email address, alerts and notifications. So I did do it. I hasn't had any alerts since then, but I assume that'll work.
You have a contact for the bike pit, like, do the committees have their own direct kind of point of contact? If someone had an issue, like you're saying, they wanted to reach out to the group, who could maybe be involved with this, is there like for that specific issue, like a point of contact, or is it to the city clerk and then you would disseminate that information?
I think usually it's city clerk is gonna help problem solve anything as far as notification prompts and enrollments and so forth. That's where your avenue you're gonna wanna go through.
Are you talking
I mean,
about?
like,
Or
more
you mean for
specific to
us?
like, for this Euclid project, for example, Megan's reaching out to Brandon would be the contact, but is there also like?
It's probably me.
Yeah.
Everyone on this committee, as well as anybody in the public, is more than welcome to contact me directly at any time to ask any questions about a capital project or private development. So I think probably a good start for now is just to contact me if you have any questions.
Yeah.
And just so you know, I have my computer today, Molly, and when you go to the city website, it's gonna be under the Get Involved tab, and then you would, you scroll over that, and then you hit the subscribe. And then you can sign up for alerts and notifications through there. News and
It
announcements.
didn't accept me. It didn't accept an old password. It wouldn't let me do a new one. It didn't like my email.
Okay. So
Yes,
it wasn't that you couldn't find where to go, it's that it just had
I
an
got,
issue.
yeah, I got there. It just didn't want to talk to me.
So I would
So
probably,
let's not take our time now with that. That's my personal problem. So let's
Got it.
keep going with the meeting stuff. Yeah, thank you though.
any other suggestions that I can? So we had,
Can you read back through the list again?
so we had, when to start involvement of the public and, it was suggested kind of in the draft phasing. How frequent do we notice? When do we notice? I made the suggestion of 30 days ahead. Somebody, I think you said, Facebook page notifications. The other thing that was stated was committees are emailed before the public notice even happens if something's going on, so we're aware of it, and then the public notice comes again. And then previously, we had talked about Sandpoint Online, KRFY, Reader, and B, and potentially doing advert as opposed to just press release, depending on the project itself. Sometimes it may be more appropriate for one than the other. But I think if people consistently know where to look, if we can get those on the calendar pages it's easy for people to see them below the cartoons and the bee, and different things like that. So it seems great.
Okay, we're off our agenda at this point. That is an important piece, and probably the city should every now and then put something out on how to sign up for notifications, but
Talking about the open house.
We're still
thing.
talking about open house notification policies.
right. Yes. And yes. But people who've signed up for notifications successfully are in a way different from people who haven't but might want to know about something and may not know how to go about it or that even that it exists.
It's talking about where to publish the notifications so people can see it in the papers and stuff.
I saw that. I understand that. That's good. Yeah. We have a local radio station. We should probably send them something.
I said KRFY,
What's the other one? The
APND.
Yeah,
Blue Sky Broadcasting, all their.
right.
On the subject of notifications and such, we had mentioned frequency, and Brandon, does it make any sense? You said doing it early makes sense. Coming back to what you said earlier, is there any possibility or usefulness in a circle back method later in the process? Like a second notification, a second check-in, or is it better to just have people contact you if they're still interested later in the process after public feedback has happened?
I think it's up to all of you what you want to suggest. I mean, it's really open. There's gonna be a lot of staff, talk about what the best policy is. So any suggestions that you feel that you want, you're an advocate for the rest of the public that cares about pedestrian and bicycle facilities. So, in my opinion, I think more open houses, the better. I don't want to commit staff to having to do one 10 times for a project, obviously. But I wouldn't say that it's inappropriate to have more than one public open house for a large capital project like the Cedar Street one. We already plan on doing at least one more, I believe, without the policy even being in place. One early on in the process, and then one when we're finishing it up before we present it to council as, here's the final design. Are you ready to adopt it and go build the thing, find the funding and build the thing?
Yeah, I don't know how to define like maybe just big projects versus small ones, but you would have a better idea on that one.
Yeah, and I think that's part of the discussion that needs to be had with staff while we're developing that policy. We've kind of talked about it. I don't know the answer, honestly.
Just another suggestion, we could also do some posting if we have a bulletin type board at the new Russell Center with, public notification for different things, because there will be a lot of people coming in and out of there, so just another thought on that. I know the mayor said that he would like a reader type board when the downtown parking lot gets repaved. He has an intention so that notices could be posted on that reader type board also. So those are other things that were discussed.
I would throw out there in like a perfect world, if you have the time and energy, I think getting public input even before the project, even before you're paying engineers to draw up a draft of anything, getting input, like for example, at First Avenue, just kind of asking the community what they imagine for, as you have these bigger goals for that project with the capital improvement plan, for example, but what's just some upfront considerations, not even anything specific to the design. And then it'd be another check-in after the draft with the public. And then ideally like multiple on that bigger project, but I think to Jen's point, it will probably vary by project, the amount of public check-ins.
wouldn't the solar project is not following up to the master plan? And that typically goes,
Sorry, say that again?
so when a project comes to the table, isn't that a fallout from the master plan?
Almost always.
So
We,
what-
we try to, we try to not just invent projects in our heads. We like to have them in a master plan.
Yeah.
So that the community, the city council, as the voice of the community, has adopted a master plan that says, here are the concepts that are priority for our community. We like to draw from those.
Yeah, so ideally, I mean, the master plan, we'd have an open house for that the city would overall, be down with it.
Yeah.
So then you guys could run with it and do the 30%. So at that point, start of the project, everyone's already pretty well, hopefully on board with it,
If they're paying attention.
if they're paying attention, yeah. Which we're doing these open houses, for the master plans and for individual projects, hopefully the word's getting out. Well, now. Don't have too many open houses, I feel like.
My only other suggestion is try, I would hope that the policy has some flexibility.
Yes,
Like you said,
absolutely.
different project sizes, different types of projects. It shouldn't just say there has to be 4 open houses for every project, full stop, because then we have to follow it to the letter, otherwise we're kind of breaking up on policy, so.
Well, we do that a lot.
No comment.
Accidentally. Well, policies happen and employees change and then.
Yeah.
The policies kind of get buried and then you realize, oh, that's a policy we still have and we're not following it.
And then the
It's not
lawyer-
intentional,
It's
it's
not egregious,
accidental.
it's fine.
The lawyers find the policy 10 years later and remind us.
They might have reminded us of that last night. Not on this type of policy though, but I totally agree. When I ask for some type of policy, there could be A, B, and C situational things where when it's an A, when it rises to that level, this is what we're doing. When it rises to this level and when it rises to that level, that's totally reasonable.
And you could define it by like money's about to be spent, like if it's a very high dollar, or if it's a very wide geographic area, or if it's a very, like, there's a number of different ways that you could define that.
That might be a good way to treat everything fairly, is
Yep.
just say a dollar amount. If if the estimated cost is over X amount, you're in this category.
Yep.
If it's under this amount, it's a less strict.
I also like the geographic part.
What if the policy included a sentence that the goal is to ensure that those who would want to know about this project, however we define project, are informed or have the opportunity to be informed? Would that give some flexibility?
So I don't know that we need a goal to write the policy. That's a part of the policy.
I couldn't hear you, Deb.
I don't know if we need a goal as part of the policy in order to write the policy.
Okay,
I mean, I think there's,
for the objective, if not the goal. I mean, there's a reason we have a policy, right?
I guess when I read the policies that I have to approve, there's usually not necessarily a goal that's stated within the policy. I'm not saying there's not a goal, but it's just not a part of the written policy. The policy is the policy. You're supposed to follow it. We wrote it, so whatever objective we had initially, the policy clarifies.
I was just trying to add something that would maybe give a little bit of flexibility, but I understand, Deb.
It could be a measurement with all this too, like measuring your current outreach and communications with the public, and maybe after implementing this, like how it, if it changes, and actually assessing that, seeing if it's working.
Yeah, like maybe a survey. But,
Yeah, survey or number of comments that you get on projects, just different
People don't
factors that you can consider.
There's
People in
that.
meetings,
Mhm.
like, kind of, I don't know, not like explicit research study, but get a feel for things.
Well, we do have those little online surveys, but a lot of times it ends up being, I'm guessing, probably the same people that are paying attention that end up with those. Just as an experience last night, our entire special meeting was on the biggest money project that Sandpoint has probably ever seen and will ever see for the next 30 years, because it's our sewage treatment plant. 2 members of the public. That was it. Everybody else was staff or sitting on the council or presented. Now, there may have been more people online at home, but there were 2 members of the public. So a lot of it is either being involved or not being involved.
But see, I didn't even know about that special meeting. So, and I try to pay attention, but.
And I
don't
guess
know how.
they post the agendas on Thursdays before, every Thursday, if you check the city website and you look at the agendas, then you will always know what's on the city agenda for the following Wednesday, whether or not you want to come.
And you can always listen to the recordings as well.
You can go back and listen to recordings, but we're getting off topic a little bit. I don't want to do that, but yeah, there is the whole piece of how much people are paying attention, but what we can do and what I said to the mayor with this was, okay, if people come forward, especially for me sitting on the council, and they are somewhat aggressive about, well, I didn't know, then we could fall back on this policy and say, this is our policy, this is what we did for this particular project. You have to have at least a little skin in the game to pay attention, because we are making an effort to do all this. It is our policy. And I think that's the most important thing, because you will probably start to get a little bit of that when people find out you're on the committee. They're gonna be like, well, we didn't know. And you're like, well, we've been talking about this for 3 months and we made a policy to tell all you people, you've got to pay a little bit of attention.
I also want to add, it's kind of a two-way street too.
Yeah.
In my opinion, as the committee members, one of your goals should be to be getting out into the community and telling everybody about this stuff. You're gonna be, after the first few meetings, you're all gonna be way more knowledgeable about what's going on with capital projects and private development. And I would hope that, you know, you would use that to sort of just be talking to people constantly, letting them know, hey, there's this project coming up. If you care about it, here's where you can find the meeting. So.
Something else that I just thought of as far as public noticing and the advertising is that, especially for this club, that one of the places we would do releases would be through potentially the bike club and the Nordic club, because they have a membership and they can then spew from their, you know, capacity out to all their members, which could be helpful, especially for pedestrian and bicycle community.
Yeah.
So I would say that that could be local nonprofit organ, and even KLT has the reach that people are very active or in the outdoors or walking, etc. So I'm gonna put those on here too.
Deb, when does city council take up this policy? Or is it on an agenda?
The mayor wrote in the email to me that he would like to accomplish this in the next month.
I'm just wondering if we could have our notes from this meeting help us define our recommendations next time. We're not going to get all the way through our agenda at the rate we're going. How do we deal with this constructively, but keep our meeting moving?
Well, if nobody else has any other comments, I have a lot of information that I can give to mayor and staff at this point, so we can move on.
Okay, thank you. Let's do that. Okay. From our last meeting, we'll open a discussion of potential on sources of funding for pedestrian and bicycle projects. And I would say this is kind of a brainstorming session.
Ones I know of is the child pedestrian grants when they come out.
They aren't funded right now.
Well, we did just get our funding for the, for my grant, so I'm hoping that they're releasing funding here soon, the government, because I know they kept going on the continuing resolutions, but hopefully all those funding.
Okay, great. All right. Yeah. So safe routes, child, um, TAP.
Yeah.
Grants. Transportation Alternatives Program.
I think the other source is, and I'm not sure what it's called, but the license plates, I know that those go to different programs depending on what personalized types of plates you get, whether that's wildlife or bicycle or different things like that. And I think they're kind of Parks and Rec oriented. I know that Jason has used funding from those, but off the top of my head, I can't remember what those grants are called. But that might be appropriate for bike stuff also.
Sure. I don't remember the name either, but they do exist. Yeah.
The license plate grant ones, the funds that go through there.
I don't, I'm not familiar with it.
Well, I don't know if Blue Cross does any grants, but that's who brought that Mark Fenton here, and I don't know if that's somewhere we could look.
Blue Cross actually historically does health oriented stuff, so especially for we received a grant which actually built the building, or the grant money went through the city for the center up at Pine Street Woods to get higher levels of adolescents out in the winter months for activity. So depending on how you approach that and what you're trying to accomplish, there could be money for ped and bike in there if it's related to different populations and health.
Possibly Pacific Source. I think we looked into them when we were doing the outright grant for the middle school. Trying to get their storage for the bikes.
Any other thoughts? City funds, we should participate in the budget process to make sure that there's some city funding as well.
Rails to trails might be a possibility depending on some of that stuff. If we get decommissioned things, I mean, some of our current pathways are on the rails to trails, so if we need funding to repave and care for those, that might be a possibility that it's already been a rail. So
Right.
Did the city fill the grant? Is there somebody that does grant writing here that we can contact if we see a grant?
Yeah, I was just gonna say that. I think since I'm the staffing liaison, if you ever come across a grant that you think might be applicable to bike ped, I would suggest just emailing me directly and I'll pass it on. It's by department, so, you know, Jason Welker, for parks and recreation. You can send grant ideas to me and I can pass them on to Holly Ellis, who I was also gonna say is the public works director now, if you know Holly. So she's my boss, and so we work together on finding grants for public works projects, which is most of what we're talking about here.
Any more?
There was
This
that
is
one
always,
section that they built that it had the gym or a sit-up bench, and there were different signs of who funded it or who gave money to it from the private businesses.
Where's that at?
It's the cutoff on the bike trail going out to Dover. There's that cutoff that goes over to Lincoln. Yeah, goes straight to Lincoln, and that was a thing many, many, many years ago. But it had a sign that said, I think it was Fifth Avenue Bikes. Most of the businesses are gone now. But it looks like they funded that section.
I think they've since removed most of it.
Have they?
Well, it became defunct.
It was very dilapidated.
It used to be nice.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, well, we always have a comment section, and as Brandon says, it doesn't hurt to keep our eyes open and report any sources we see. Thank you. Okay, for our last item of old business, Brandon will present on the preliminary design of the Cedar Street reconstruction process, and I yield the floor to Brandon.
Yeah, so the interest of time, I know it's a presentation, but y'all, I think got a copy of the 30% plan, so I think it might be more efficient if anybody has anything they want to ask or any comments about that, what they saw.
What changes have been made?
So I was gonna say, we just, right before this meeting, got the 60% drawings completed. So I will also send those out in preparation for the next meeting. Not a whole lot of changes related to the sidewalk and ramps, as far as I can tell. A lot of the work between 30 and 60% has been related to stormwater. And where we're gonna take the stormwater to the Avista property, basically, is what we're looking at on the west end of Cedar. So.
Any more questions or comments?
And again, if you get a chance to look at these plans later individually, again, staff's door is always open. Holly or myself are more than welcome to set up a meeting to come into City Hall and go over the plans one-on-one or however you want to do it.
And you sent those out, because my email was down for like a week.
Can't hear you, Deb.
Oh, I was telling Brandon that my email, I had a problem with my interface for the last week, so I didn't actually get that, but they were sent.
We do the communications through our clerk, so I don't know.
They were on the,
They were in the packet.
okay.
They were in the packet.
Yeah.
Okay, sorry.
They were-
Sorry.
Okay, yeah, that's just what I
Brandon.
was asking. I'll go back and do that because I was unable to access my email.
You're talking about the ones from Betty first sent, right? Or the 60%. You haven't sent the 60.
I've not sent the 60%,
Oh, okay.
but
That's
Okay,
Next time,
Yeah,
with
that's
that, I'll find it.
Yeah.
I'm good.
we will now move on to new business and a staff presentation on the Euclid Avenue right-of-way project. And I again yield the floor to Brandon.
okay, so this is one that I kind of personally really want to fight for, and I'm hoping that the Bike Ped Committee can help me with the public outreach and controlling the narrative. Let me share my screen here. I can figure out how to use this one. So, south end of Euclid. You see Lakeview Boulevard, there's, Memorial Field over to the west. South end of Euclid, these yellow lines are a right of way. I don't know, it's might be hard to see, but basically we have a 60-foot wide right of way that goes all the way down to the lake. That it's public right of way, just like any other street. But we have not ever built a street down to the water. But legally it's, public right of way, which means the public has the right to travel upon it and use it. And you can see that it ends at this yellow line, but really, according to Idaho stream access laws, it abuts the artificial high water mark, which is the summer pool level of the lake, which means that once you get down to the water, even though you can see this property right here that I'm highlighting is owned by the homeowner adjacent, he owns the property that extends out into the lake. But because the artificial high water mark overlaps that, the public has the right to swim and use that. And actually launch kayaks and boat on it. And he can't really stop people from using that, you know, again, inside the artificial high water mark. So what we have decided to do is, because our multimodal master plan specifically says that we want to encourage waterfront access for the public. We're going to start a project where we're going to try to build a sidewalk. We're going to extend the sidewalk on Euclid. Is what I'd like to do, extend it down to the waterfront and maybe put a bench down there to start. And then maybe in a year or two, we have a couple of landscape architects on staff. Potentially have them do some in-house, maybe put some plantings down there. Basically encourage people to go down and use it, because right now, let me go to street view here. Because sometimes people understand it better from looking at it on the ground rather than a map. But if you can see, this is like looking south down that right of way.
That's funny. I've looked at that so many
Yes.
times.
Right.
And I'm always like, I'm not allowed. I
Exactly.
Oh, no,
Private
like,
drive.
yeah,
many times.
those in the know, no.
Yeah.
So that's my point, is that like I grew up in this neighborhood, and if you, like most people that don't look at these GIS maps, they think, oh, that must be private property,
Yeah.
because the people that live down there have purposely
Made it with that.
landscaped it in a way that, you know, but they can't. In fact, right now, if you go walk down there right now, the neighbors might yell at you, and if you do, I mean, you are allowed to walk down there and actually stand down there and access the water. But so anyway, I wanted to bring that to your attention. I will give you updates as we develop that, but basically I have, if you're familiar with the sidewalk in lieu fee money, where developments that normally would require sidewalk to be constructed, we have them pay into a fund so that those, they don't have to build sidewalk when it doesn't make sense. And then those can get respent in the same neighborhood for sidewalks that do make sense. I happen to have a lot of money in this particular section that we can use. And so that's kind of the plan. This homeowner right here actually rebuilt his sidewalk this year on his own accord with his own money, even though we weren't making him do it. So I'm basically going to connect that sidewalk that goes down here on. And so anyway, just wanted to give an update on that.
Exciting.
Yeah.
Since we're on this topic, which might be of interest to the committee.
Louder.
Since we're on this topic and it might be of interest to the committee, can you show us the end of Ella going into the water? Cause it's right by the sewage treatment.
So this is what she's talking about. See this like snake looking thing right here? This is public right of way. I don't know why they did that. My guess is back in the day when they subdivided the Moran Edition, they were thinking that a road would continue along the waterfront and go back over to Division or something.
That road's actually called Gray Way and there were lots on the other side of it, but then the lake flooded it. So it was a platted road, I think, originally before the lake levels rose.
Oh, really?
Yes.
Okay.
And so, then because of that right of way right there, there is a lot that isn't underwater that is the subdivision. So most of those houses not on the waterfront, but it's called Moran's
Yeah. Okay.
Addition, own as the homeowners association, that piece of property on the waterfront.
Moran.
But it's landlocked. Unless you walk down Gray Way, because that property behind it, I think, was owned by Cascade Lumber or something. The lot that goes up to Birch, or is that Elm? I think that's Elm. But what I was asking about, Brandon, was could Ella just go straight, because that's all city-owned property? And could that be another more formalized water access point?
Well, I would say yes. So if you're traveling down Ella, can you see I don't know if you can see my
Yes.
cursor. If you go here and you peel off and go over here, that's city property. We're not gonna stop people from walking down here and accessing the water.
Right, but that's just something else on just to put it on everybody's radar. If you want to access the water, it's pretty steep riprap. But if we modified it could even be a small project to modify that to change
that access point a little bit, and it could be another place to access the water.
And it
Low
may,
hanging fruit.
it may wrap in with the wastewater treatment plant. That's
Exactly.
probably where you're going with it.
You're smart. And a true path that goes around the backside with education.
Yeah,
Mhm.
we've talked about that a lot. You know, so she's talking about, actually, I see a lot of people actually walk
Yes.
back here on this informal
Oh, it's a
path.
path,
right?
it's informal, but I mean, a truly designated path.
Yeah.
So,
And yeah, if, again, so to open it up, if you notice any other ways to get the public to be able to access the water, suggestions, bring it up in this committee. I think it'd be good for discussion here to get stuff.
And I know
going.
that Project 7B is very, very, very interested in the same topic. They're a nonprofit group and they're trying to.
Louder.
I know that Project 7B, they're a nonprofit in the area. They're very, very interested in preserving public access to water. And they are actually collaborating with KLT and I want to say the tribes on trying to make a map of spots like this that will be lost if we don't use them. So they would be interesting to weigh that early on. They're very small, but they have a good newsletter and Facebook presence that people actually respond to.
so I could add to that because the person who leads a lot of that charge, I might frequently ride the chairlift with.
Yeah.
So
Yeah,
I
definitely.
will connect her into these and make sure that that organization is aware. She probably already is, but it might be really at the bottom of her memory. So I'll bring that back up. What other streets, since we're here, Brandon,
Mhm.
does Fourth have a right of way? I don't think Fourth does.
No, Fourth, the owner down there, was smart. This is Fourth. They bought this because they didn't want it to turn into another third avenue pier.
Right, and I think Coochie originally owned that.
It is owned by somebody named Somerville and one.
Somerville, yeah,
and
but
Frank.
John Coochie, I think, originally
Built that
owned that
site.
house and then he sold it to Somerville.
Yep, so the house on either side, they own these lots here, basically to prevent people from getting down there. So this would not be an example, unfortunately. I wish it was.
What about Lincoln where the cemetery is?
That one does end,
That's division.
Division.
but it's so high above, the water level that you can't really access the water, but you can drive down.
Mhm.
You know, this is public street.
You can park there.
Yeah, on the street, just like any other street. So, yeah. My vision for that, honestly, my personal vision for that Euclid thing is. We were not gonna be able to build another pier again, cause that guy owns the water, so. The Army Corps and IDL won't give us a permit to build a dock across some of these properties, so that's the advantage of him owning. The land underneath the water, but that's pretty much it. So what I would like to do, hopefully, at some point. I'm thinking like, we bring in some big boulders, like flat boulders, like riprap, that is shoreline protection, but also you can step down and get into the water, something like that.
With a low enough angle where someone could carry like a kayak or something.
Yeah.
With 1 minute left, I'm going to ask if there are any general announcements and comments. And Brandon, this is all very exciting about access to the water. Thank you. Anybody have anything they'd like to add or put on next month's agenda?
I just had clarification, so we have Ella and Euclid and Third. Are all the options.
Third, Euclid. Ella,
In division.
Ella and Division.
Division. That's it. And then
Cause first, those are all houses are built there, so there's nothing there.
First, yeah, this is first has a lot blocking it.
Second one still has that.
But you know, you also gotta think about, well, I mean. Some of the stuff downtown along Sand Creek is. You know, it's not just the south side of town, I mean. there's some other opportunities maybe.
What's the street behind the old Safeway? I think that, oh,
Large,
yeah, would it be, no, I don't think it's large that I'm thinking of.
Fur. I don't think there's any other right of ways they're gonna have. to
Right,
follow.
right there, the old, where the, yeah,
The
that
old
one.
Safeway.
The
That's
hospital owns the old,
Oh,
I think there was probably a bridge here at some point,
yeah, there's a lot of.
but the hospital owns this lot.
Okay, so the
Oh.
hospital owns that, so that, but that's the street I was thinking about, that dead ends into the watershed, okay. But that's government owned. It's the hospital,
Is it government?
Honor General's public,
Oh, is it? Okay.
from what I understand. Cause
Think
it has a
so.
board and so that potentially is an option because it's based in public ownership. More complicated, that's my.
Well, the conversation doesn't necessarily need to stop, but it's 1:31. Well, no,
12:31.
12:31. Sorry, I'm on mountain time here. And I'm going to say that we have no further business on the agenda and this meeting is now adjourned at 12:31 p.m. Thank you.